How to find a rain leak in your building. We do it for living in large high-rise buildings, and we are often approached by laymen who ask us about the ropes of the trade. The facade doctor wouldn't do anything different from what you would do as a do-it-yourself.
As with all other tradesmen, the difference is mainly in having right tools and acquiring specialized knowledge and experience. What a pro can do in 1 hour, you can probably accomplish in 10 hours, becoming a pro in the process. The process can be divided in 3 steps: diagnosis, directions, and remediation. We are going to focus on the diagnosis today, and the diagnosis starts with observation and testing. The first thing we need is access to the facade, which typically means having or renting aerial platform, Boston chair, ladder, some fancy equipment extending your vision, such as boroscopes and binoculars. Binoculars allow you to get a close-up view of a facade without climbing on it, while a boroscope allows you to peek inside an assembly without the need to demolish the outer layers. Once you looked at the condition, you need to review any available documentation. Then look again at the building in order to find the spatial relationships, location of plumbing, etc. Then you are ready to do some testing. Before testing, you would need to fix all conspicuous deficiencies that may be responsible for the water intrusion, otherwise testing would be a waste of time. By now you should have developed a plan for testing based on some working hypotheses. You need to investigate the facade by testing assemblies and gradually eliminating those that do not leak. The purpose of the test is to replicate the leak that you experienced during rain. The simplest test is a garden hose test, in which water is sprayed onto a wall, wetted starting from the bottom up until the leak is replicated. Then the suspect areas are masked and retested. If the leak stopped, then you're almost done. Like I said, once you replicate the leak, let it dry and seal it. You need some goop and some tape. Both need to be compatible with what you do. A sealant gun and duct tape is all you need in most cases. A reinforced liquid roofing cement and some aluminum sheet metal would work on asphalt roofs. Once it cures, you need to test it again, the same way you did when you replicated the rain intrusion. If the water does not appear, you are almost done. Almost, because most buildings have several leak sources, which are triggered by different weather conditions. Testing equipment is typically composed of some plumbing, delivering and spraying water, as well as an apparatus generating and measuring air pressure difference, and tools used to identify gaps in the building enclosures, such as smoke, noise generators, thermal cameras. There are standard procedures available from industry associations such as AMA and ASTM describing how this test should be performed, but you would end up modifying them anyway to make them work on your rehab case. They are primarily intended for new construction as opposed to the existing buildings. More difficult are the prolonged tests dedicated to test assemblies over time or under hydrostatic pressure. You may need to plug your drains and flat horizontal assemblies, or spray water from a grid of spray nozzles to load the high water storage capacity assembly over time. Flooding flat roofs and hydrostatic pressuring testing of the storm leaders should only be done by trained, licensed, and insured professionals, because they are quite dangerous. You can even cause a collapse of a building or kill someone. The first rule is do no harm. Primo non nocere. The same applies to facade doctors. If water didn't do the trick, you may want to use air instead. Installing a blower door on the building and pressurizing its interior would allow you to trace the air leaks with thermovision camera. In the hot climate, you would be looking for cold spots where the cool air escapes the building through cracks. In the cold or mixed climate in the winter, you would look for warm spots where the hot air escapes the building. Another way is using a smoke generator loaded with some theatrical smoke or a small smoke pan. It may be a problem if the building is equipped with smoke sensors. You don't want to flood the building by activating a sprinkler system. Some people use noise generator and a listener. Air pressure may also help you or hurt you, depending which way it goes during the water tests. It pays to monitor the pressure differential across the facade with a precise manometer. This is actually a required step by some industry procedures, which require you also to build a vacuum chamber on the interior side of a tested window. In a rehab situation, you can use a blower door for the same purpose. The results you would be getting may be quite confusing for someone unfamiliar with the design and construction of a high-rise building. Unlike small residential houses, large buildings are seldom alike. Therefore, their illnesses can be inferred only by a person familiar with both general construction and having extensive experience in high-rises. This is why these services are typically performed by folks who not only spent several years at the university learning the basics of building technology and subsequently became engineers, architects, or material scientists, but also have seen many building facades in their career and build up substantial experience. For example, the engineering staff of this building called us to investigate this roof leak after several days of rain. One look at this condition told us that this is a plumbing waistline leak, not a roof leak. How did we know it? Pipe has a P-trap, which would be quite unusual in a rainwater leader. Very often you may need to make exploratory openings in your building in order to get closer to some areas while testing. In many cases you won't regret it, since you probably already experienced the water damage at this location. Demolition hammer and pry bars are the tools of the trade. Watch out! The demolition work typically requires a building permit in most jurisdictions, and in almost all cases you also need a licensed and insured contractor to perform this work. Needless to say, these openings would need to be temporarily secured once you are done.
This is about as much as we can cover in 5 or 6 minutes. Many folks learn this trade for decades, so there is much more to it. Good luck, and if you finally decide to hire a professional, you may want to screen them by testing their knowledge using the elementary principles learned in this session. Asking questions to which you already know the answer is a very good way of screening your service providers.